evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Please reply yes and no. Thank you very much. Thank you, Himanshu. Session start after 2 minutes.
Okay, good evening everybody. I hope I'm audible. Please type a yes in your chat window. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll be starting in just 5 minutes or so. Would request GP to test his mic once. GP, please try speaking something.
This is Gautam Modi. Hello everyone. As Abhishek said, we'll be starting in a few minutes. And hope I'm audible to everyone. Thank you, Abhishek.
Yes, I think you are. I think you are. Okay, just probably need to be a bit louder. Hi, good evening everybody. We are about to start the session. We're just waiting for Neeraj, Soumya and Rajat to join us. So meanwhile, I'll continue talking about IIFT as a test, what it is, what it expects, what are the things that it takes into account, how different is the paper from other management entrance exams and things like that. I have GP with me right now, and 2-3 people would be joining in sometime. And so let's proceed. Okay, this is the overall structure of the paper. The IIFT paper is a paper in pencil-based test, as you all know. Around 50 to 60,000 test takers take the test, and around 1100. Last time the number was around 980, and so it's around 1000 to 1100 people who get a call from IIFT finally. Fine. So that way it's around, you can say, 2% of the test takers who get a final call. So this number is between 1000 to 1100 generally, and this makes a huge difference to the cutoffs of the test, mind it. And so that is that's why I thought I'll just discuss with the number of test takers and the number of people who get a call for the final stage. The test duration has been the same. In fact, I don't know, at least for 8 to 10 years, it's been 2 hours, that is 120 minutes. And the test, the total marks for the test has also been the same. It's been 100 marks. So it's a 100 marks test. So the number of questions varies. So the number is always between 120 to 150. So at times it's 120, at times it's 150, 122, 135. I remember one of the years. And but the total marks are always 100. So it's modeled in a way. There are different weights for different types of questions. So it's modeled in a way that total marks come to 100 only. So you might get a question in IIFT paper which carries 0.67 marks. So things like that are there in the IIFT exam. It's obviously a multiple choice exam. The sections that are broadly tested in the IIFT exam are there are, in fact, you can say 6 areas that are tested in IIFT exam. So I'll say English comprehension testing. This is the first thing which is tested. Now this at times comprises 2 sections or 2 subsections. One is RC, which will have just RC passages and nothing else. 4 or 5 passages, some 15-20 questions of RC, maybe even 25 questions at times. And the second will be English usage, which at times in IIFT scorecard is also known as the vocabulary section. So this is the second part. So this is broadly the 2 sections which have got something to do with verbal ability. So this is one, and this English usage is the second section. Then there is a section in general knowledge and awareness. In that way you can say English comprehension, RC, English usage and general awareness. This is probably I'll say the third subsection or section in the paper. Logical reasoning is the 4th one. All those arrangement-based problems, logical reasoning problems, all of you know what logical reasoning is. Quantitative aptitude and data integration are the last 2. And so that way there are 6 parts of an IIFT paper. RC, English usage, general awareness, logical reasoning, quantitative aptitude, and data interpretation. This is 5, and data interpretation is the 6th section. So we'll discuss all these 6 in detail. What you need to remember is that in an IIFT paper, you might have 4 sections, you might have 5, you have 6 sections. So at times, I remember a paper in recent years which had 4 sections, and 3 of the sections had 2 subsections. So in all, there were 7 subsections. And last time it was, in fact, very funny. The paper had 6 sections last year. In the scorecard, there were just 5 sections. So what they did was, 2 of the sections were clubbed under English comprehension. So RC and English usage appeared as different sections in the paper, but finally, when the scorecard came, they were clubbed as English comprehension. So it made no difference in the end because last year I did not have sectional cutoffs. We'll talk more about it later. Right? But this is broadly the pattern of the question paper. So there are 6 broad areas that are tested in an IIFT paper. Okay, this is a comparative analysis of IIFT papers. So this 2012 to 14 means the test that was held in 2011, right? This is the test that was held in 2011. So the test in 11 was for the 2012 to 14 batch. That's why it's called IIFT admission test 2012 to 14. Fine. So likewise, the next is 2010 test, then 9, then 8, then 7. It goes on like this. As you can see, the number of questions varies from 120 to 150. The number of sections is also 6, 4, 4, 6, 4 with different subsections. The negative marking in IIFT has traditionally been, all the questions are 4 options. I find it worth mentioning. So all the questions in IIFT have 4 options, and if you look at the last 5 papers, all these papers had just one correct answer. So 4 options, 1 correct answer, which is true for the papers mentioned here. Just 1 correct answer. The paper immediately before this one, 2008 to 10, जिसके एकदम पहले वाला पेपर था, that paper had multiple choice correct answers as well. So that was probably one of the more difficult IIFT papers. They had multiple correct answers, and in multiple correct answer questions there was no negative marking. But we chose to skip that paper for analysis because I think there is I don't think more than 5% chance of that kind of paper appearing again this year. And so these are the 5 papers that I'm going to analyze and keep in mind while discussing this. Alright, if you look at these 5 papers, there was just this one year, which is 2009 to 11, in which the extent of the negative marking was 25%, that is 1/4 of the marks allotted to the question, despite the fact that all the questions still had 4 options. So, you know, if it's a 4 options question with 25% negative marking, so there is a better chance of, scoring out of that extent of negative marking. So just keep this in mind that an IIFT paper may have 25% negative marking. So my gut feeling is that it's going to be 33% only this year as well. But just keep this in mind that this IIFT paper had 25% negative marking. This paper which was held in 2008, that was 4 years back. Otherwise, I think it's going to be 33%. Okay, coming on to the cutoffs. Look, if you look at these cutoffs, these are fairly low. 8 to 10 was also somewhere around this mark. We could not zero in on the exact cutoff, so I have not mentioned it here. But it was again somewhere around 25 to 30 only. 2006 was further lower. The paper that was held for the 2007 to 9 batch, it was I think around 22, 23 marks. So if you look at these 4 cutoffs, this one, this, and this one. 9 and 11, I think they were sectional cutoffs. In fact, if you look at these 2, I think they were sectional cutoffs. IIFT does not tell you what are the cut marks, what are the exact sectional cutoffs and things like that. So all these things are based on our analysis, and we try calling them up also at times, asking about the cutoffs. So if they're in a mood to divulge the details, they do that. Otherwise, they don't. But this data is fairly accurate, very accurate. You can say this is till the second place of decimal. Fine. So these 2 papers, the paper held in this was held in 2009 and this was held in 2008. So the papers which were conducted in 2008 and 9 had sectional cutoffs, and this is also the reason that the cutoffs were, slightly lower. The last 2 papers did not have sectional cutoffs. So if you look at these 2 papers, these 2, they did not have sectional cutoffs. Okay, now the tricky part is that at times IIFT mentions that there are sectional cutoffs, but there is no sectional cutoff. At times they don't, and there are. So you have to keep this in mind that the sectional thing can get tricky in IIFT. Right? So sectional cutoffs have traditionally not been very high in IIFT. So for example, if you talk about GK, if a GK section carries a weight of let's say 9 out of 100 marks, so sectional cutoff may be as low as 1.5 marks as well. And so it's generally not very high, but because of this, I would recommend doing something in every section and subsection of the paper. There has never been subsectional cutoffs in IIFT, but I would still recommend doing something everywhere. So if you are, let's say, not good in GK, I would still not recommend leaving everything. And just attempt those 4 questions which would probably carry a weight of around, let's say, 1.5 to 2 marks, but just do them. You'll get something out of it. If you are not sure of absolutely anything, then you can probably leave it and keep your fingers crossed. But otherwise, I'll advise not to go by that missing instruction of sectional cutoffs in the instruction sheet of IIFT, and do something in every part. Don't worry too much about the sectional cutoffs, but just keep this in mind that it may be there. Last 2 years, it definitely wasn't there. Okay. Another thing which is special about IIFT is that you must be wondering why this cutoff jumped in 2011. One major reason was that they reduced the number of calls that they gave. For information, this last test held in 2011, and this was in 2010. So this test that was conducted in 2010 gave 1100 calls, precisely 1100 calls, and the cutoff was 35.74. The test held in 2011 gave some 980 calls. So that was a drop of around 10%. So it might not look like a very substantial drop, but it was a huge drop. Because of which I think the cutoff jumped by some 10% or so. So in a paper in which the cutoff could be around 38, 39, 40, it jumped to around 45. Another reason because of which these cutoffs vary slightly is that IIFT traditionally has been giving some 5, 7, 8, 10 incorrect questions in the paper. It's a tradition. They are hell-bent on following it. And so they always give incorrect questions. And I don't know if it's good or bad or what, but at times they admit some of the mistakes and give bonus marks to the students. So I'll come to the slide. So if you look at this, IIFT always gives some incorrect questions. So it may be 5, 6, 7 or 8, maybe 10, but there are always bound to be incorrect questions in IIFT paper. What they do is that at times they give you some incorrect marks, some bonus marks for each. So if you look at this paper, let's talk about, let's say, the paper conducted in 2010. In this paper, 2 marks were awarded to everybody. So 2 marks in quant were awarded to everybody. So effectively, I would say that the cutoff of this paper was 33.74 rather than 35.74. Likewise, in the paper conducted in 2009, it shows that the cutoff was 37.40. But 4 bonus marks were awarded to everybody in LRDI. So that way the cutoff was only 33.40. We don't have data for this in the last paper, but I'm sure there must have been some 4 or 5 bonus marks to everybody in the last paper as well. So they do it all the time. So that way, there are some incorrect questions, and some of them are acknowledged by IIFT, and they give marks to everybody for those incorrect questions. Now the marks given are irrespective of whether you have attempted the question, not attempted the question, not seen the question. So it also becomes a bit of a lottery. But this kind of contains a lesson for you as well. If in IIFT paper you think a question is incorrect, getting the solution, you cannot make that chart, there is some discrepancy somewhere, some contradiction in data or something, just leave it. If you find the data is inconsistent, there's a good chance that you are correct and the data is inconsistent. So just leave that question, irrespective of what you mark as an answer, or leave it or do whatever. If they choose to award the bonus marks in that question, so these bonus marks are awarded to everybody. Right? So obviously you must have by this time figured out how we came to know that there was bonus marks. So there were people who left the section altogether and still ended up with that 4.00. So the only way that they could have ended up with that 4.00 without doing anything in the paper was it was bonus marks. Right? So that is the reason I'm saying that just make sure that you don't get stuck on any of the questions, thinking that you can figure that out. Probably there's a good chance that the question is incorrect. Differential marking I've already talked about. No, I haven't. Okay, IIFT has differential marking. So it's 150, 120, 130 questions, which in all add up to around 100 marks. So that is because there are questions which carry a weight of 1 mark. There are questions which carry a weight of 0.7 marks, as low as 0.35 or 0.4 marks. So unlike an IRMA paper which we were discussing day before, IIFT gives differential marks to different questions. So a GK question which can be done very very quickly would be just given 0.4 marks as compared to a quant question which is given 1 full mark. Right? So that IIFT contains differential marking, and this is the reason why at times the weight of GK section in IIFT is pretty low. So unlike in IRMA, in which 30% of the total marks are reserved for GK, or in the new format 20% marks, IIFT's GK would be some between 8 to 12% of the total marks. So out of 100 marks, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like this would be the weight of the GK section. Okay, we talked about differential marking, incorrect questions, bonus marks. Okay, this is another thing that I already discussed. So at times, paper would have 6 sections and the scorecard will have 5 or the other way around, but it hardly matters because for the last 2 years there's been no sectional cutoff. Remember, IIFT might have sectional cutoffs, I'm not sure, but I don't think that they would have sub-sectional cutoffs. Still, just make sure to do everything somewhere. So if you're not too fond of attempting those very, very large, very, very long, very tedious RC passages, just make sure that you do just one passage, right? So that you don't, you're not left with a 0 or a negative in that. Sectional cutoffs I already talked about, so it's very dicey. Don't think too much about it. Just do something in every paper. Number of calls reduced last year. We don't know what's going to happen this year, but this does have a huge effect on the paper. So if they choose to, go down further from around 1,000 to 800, probably, I don't know, with the same level of difficulty, the cutoff would jump from a 45 to a 55. If they choose to increase the number of calls that are given to the students, probably the cutoff would go down. But since they don't announce the number of calls that could be given beforehand, we cannot do anything about it. So don't think too much about it. I just thought I'll discuss this with you. Okay, before I move on to the section-wide analysis, I would just invite GP to share his views on this. GP, do you want to add something to it?
I think, Abhishek, you have covered practically everything, so I don't see any point in just repeating. I think we can move on to the individual section-wide analysis.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll quickly cover the sections first, all the 6 sections, or you can call them subsections first, and then we'll discuss all these 6 sections or subsections in detail. Now, we'll first have a look at the weights given to the different sections or subsections. If you look at this last paper, RC had 15 questions and the weight was 0.75. Fine. So RC had 15 questions, the weight of 0.75. So RC was basically around 11 marks. So 11 out of 100 marks last year was for RC. It was almost the same in the year before that. If you look at this one, 2010-12, it was 15 marks. Then before that was again 10 marks. In 2008 to 10 paper, there were 2 kinds of RC. One kind of RC had one kind of passage had questions carrying a weight of 0.6 marks, and other type had a weight of 0.64 marks. So it comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, the questions and question types in RC. And so roughly I'll say, if you look at reading comprehension, I'll say that this would vary from 10 to 15 marks. So this would be carrying a weight of 10 to 15 marks out of 100 marks in the paper. If it's not as big a number as 23, generally the number of passages would be 3 to 4. So it will be 3 to 4 passages carrying some 10 to 15 marks in reading comprehension in IIFT. So it can appear as a section or as a subsection. We'll come to English usage. English usage, last time the weight was 0.75. Generally it's 0.5, 0.6. Last time it was, I'll say, equal to the weight given to the RC questions. But at times it has happened in RC. For example, if you look at this paper, this one. So if you look at this paper, and then if you see the weights given to RC and EU, RC's weight was slightly, in fact, not slightly, 40% more than the weight given to the English usage questions. But last year paper, it was almost the same. So last year it was 23 into 0.75, the paper before that. Okay, if you look at the number of questions, it's almost consistent, 23, 25, 25, 23, 22. The weight has varied. So I think the lowest weight given to the English usage questions was in this paper, this 2011-13 paper, in which it was 11.5 marks. And the highest would be, I think, last year, which is 23 into 0.75. So I'll again say that this would be again the same, some 11 to 17 marks for English usage. So if you add these two, which I'll say is the language comprehension part of this paper, these two, so they would carry a weight of some 20 to 25 marks, these two sections. So the English in IIFT would comprise around 20 to 25 marks worth of questions. Okay? Come to general knowledge. General knowledge last year was 10.5 marks. The year before that was 12 marks, then 8 marks, then 9 marks. So it's something like this. Look at this paper, 2008 to 10. It was 0.38 marks. So funny calculation. So that way, if you look at the GK section, GK would again be the lowest was I think 8. The highest is around 12. So I'll say GK would be 8 to 12 marks in IIFT paper. So EU is 11 to 17, RC is 10 to 15, and GK would be 8 to 12 marks. Now let's come to the heavyweights of the paper. Look at quantitative ability. The quantitative ability, except for if you look at the last 3 years, the weight has been 1 mark per question. The year before that, it was 0.7, and before that it was 0.9. The reason primarily in these two papers, if you look at this and this, both the papers had 150 questions. So the weight given to the questions obviously had to be a little less as compared to the last three papers, in which the highest number of questions was 135. But quantitative ability, there's a good chance the weight given to the questions would be either 1 or very close to 1. So look at the last year's paper, 24 marks. The year before that, 30 marks. 13 to 1 is 30 marks. Before that, 28 marks. So I'll say in an IIFT paper, if not more, there's a good chance that QA section may carry a weight of around 30 marks in an IIFT paper. The lowest I think is around what? Lowest would be I think 2009 to 11 paper, which would be again around 20 marks. So QA may vary from 20 to 30 marks. But there's a good chance that it would be about 25 in IIFT. It carries all kinds of questions that we are going to discuss later. Come to data interpretation, again, the weight has been 1 mark per question for the last 3 years. You must be wondering why this number is so high in 11, 13. This number is so high, 35 and 34. This is very high because the LR section was clubbed with DI. So you can see that this is blank, this is blank. So that was the reason that this number is very high. So this 35 is basically DI plus LR. And this 34 is also DI plus LR. If you add this 16 and 21, this is again 37. So DI plus LR, if you add this is 37. So DI plus LR last year was 37. The year before that 35. In 2009 it was 34, 34, 35, 37. You club these two, this would be some 32 to 37, 38 marks, something like that. So this is, if you club the two, as it is done in CAT, DI and LR, as it used to be done in CAT, DI and LR would be probably would carry the maximum weight in the paper. So from 30 to 37 marks. Now this DILR is very tricky because at times you'll find a very tedious question in data interpretation. Logical reasoning is, I'll not say always manageable, but at times it's manageable, better than data interpretation questions at least. Fine. So you'll have to be very good at picking and choosing the right questions to do in data interpretation and logical reasoning. Generally, the questions are distributed equally between the two. So last year you can see that there were 16 in DI and 21 in LR. This 35 also were almost evenly broken up, and this 34 was also like 15, 20, 15, 20 each of the two. So this is a broad breakup of the IIFT paper. Since there are no sectional cutoffs, there are no subsectional, no sectional cutoffs, you may you should in fact plan your strategy accordingly. So you should plan where you should score very fast to score in this paper. Is it going to be QA? Is it going to be DILR or English or what? But I think you should try and extract something out of every section of the paper. So this is a broad breakup. Okay, I think should move forward, and now this is the English comprehension section. Now Soumya has joined us. I'll just give her the speaking rights, and we'll start with the analysis of the English comprehension section now.
Hi everyone, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You can start.
Yeah. Alright, so the IIFT English has essentially two parts, as Abhishek has already described. You have reading comprehension and you have English usage. I'll talk about reading comprehension first. Last year there were 4 passages. Usually IIFT gives about 3 to 4 passages with about 12 to 15 questions. Now these passages are usually, they are about 550 to 800 words. They are based on business and economics, and they are very easy read. They are not difficult to read. So if you are used to reading an article, a business-based article in newspaper or magazine, you should be able to sail through with these passages. The kind of questions that IIFT gives are direct in nature and are based on specific details. Which means that even if you read the question first, that would be a good idea. Read the question first and go to the passage and try and find the details and then eliminate options. Usually 2 questions are based on match the following details, wherein you're given set of names or figures or numbers depending on the passage and some details alongside where you have to match them. Now these questions generally look tedious, but they are not, because this can be done by elimination and by matching 2 or 3 of the given details and not all of them. So as Abhishek has already told you that it pays to do at least 1 RC from this area, because we do not know whether they will be having sectional or subsectional cutoffs or not. So attempt at least an RC. You can select RC at random because these RCs are usually easy. So you'll not get anything bordering on philosophy or abstract, so you can read them. And I would suggest that you select the RC which has more number of questions, which means if an RC has 3 questions and the other one has 4, select the one with 4 questions and attempt almost all of them, because these questions are easy. Now, RCs are also tedious and long, and they take a lot of time. So it would be a good idea not to spend your maximum of your time there, but to spend that time on English usage, because that is the area you can really score in. Now, when it comes to English usage, IIFT generally gives you a mixed bag. As you can see in the slide here, grammar there were 6 questions, vocabulary 10 questions. There were questions on para completion, spelling, sentence jumble, word jumbles. I'll talk about each one of them individually. Now, in grammar, you get generally 2 to 3 questions of each kind. The first question type would be where you're given a sentence and a portion of the sentence is either missing or is underlined. And the options will, from amongst the options, you have to select the best fit. And all 4 of these options would mean generally the same, but will have some grammatical error or other. So you have to select that portion of the sentence which is perfectly alright and is grammatically correct. Another way a grammar question can occur is where a sentence is divided into 4 parts and each part is labeled with one of the letters. You have to select the part which has the error. Another form of grammar question can come in form of direct indirect speech, as it happened last year. So it would be a good idea, because this is not the area we usually do in CAT. So it would be a good idea to revise the concepts of direct indirect speech and related topics. Now, when it comes to vocabulary, again we get all kinds of questions. You would have questions on synonyms, antonyms. You would have questions on Latin phrases, which came last year. You can also have questions on figure of speech. For example, they can ask you which one of the following words represents an oxymoron. So it is important that you know the meaning of the figure of speech at least. So it would be a good idea to go back and revise what does an oxymoron mean, what is a hyperbole, what is a simile, what is a metaphor, etc. Again, let's come to para-completions. Para-completions are, again, one portion of the paragraph of a short sentence would be missing, and you have to select the perfect fit in that. Spellings, usually 1 or 2 questions come on spellings. Usually, sometimes they don't even come. And these spellings are not easy. These are generally long words that we do not use very regularly. So, attempt this question only if you are very sure of this. Sentence jumble questions last year were easy, but they were time consuming. So, the text was very simple and you can actually connect the words very easily. You'll find a lot of mandatory pairs, but these will be time consuming. So, you can take your pick if you want to do that or you don't want to do that. Word jumbles were particularly tough because these were again long words of more than 6 or 7 letters, and you had to rearrange the letters to form a meaningful word. If you can, in these questions, if you can just get them in one go, attempt it, don't spend a lot of time there. So the easiness or the toughness of this question would depend on how quickly you can really, sense the question. I would say English usage overall will not take a lot of time, and would be scoring, so spend more time on English usage and later on reading comprehension. But attempt at least 4 to 5 questions from reading comprehension before you close your paper. And now if you have any more questions, I can please put that in chat and I'll reply to that. Abhishek, I think we can move on to the next section.
Okay, Abhishek, I would like to add a few things to the English section. This EP here.
Yes.
Abhishek, can you just give me the writing rights also?
Okay.
That will make my task a little easier. Thank you. Okay, just what you have heard from me, I think it's important that you remember this part, that when you look at the amount of effort, especially last year's paper, English comprehension, the reading comprehension had every question was worth 0.75 marks, and out here also every question was worth 0.75 marks. Now, given that scenario, it did not make sense to do too much of reading comprehension, because doing 4 questions from reading comprehension would have meant, if not more, about 8 to 9 minutes. While doing 4 questions from here, from the English usage part, means about not more than 3 minutes. So while here you could get 3 minutes, in 3 minutes you could get 4 marks, here you had to spend more than double the time to get. So one of the things which you need to remember in the paper is, where is it I am going to get a better bang for the buck? Where is it I will be able to maximize my marks? So when you are looking at the paper per se, I would say don't assume it to be a 120-minute or a 2-hour paper. This is not a 120-minute or 2-hour paper. From your point of view, this is a 110-minute paper. And the first 10 minutes, you have to essentially understand the paper, which means you go to the instruction, look at the marks weightage across the 4 sections, or the 6 sections as the case may be, and also quickly glance through all the pages and see what is the nature of each section. Understand each section. So the first 5 minutes, in some cases it will be even 10 minutes, but understand the paper and each section separately, so that you are able to understand where should you maximize. But at the same time, since there is no clarity if there is sectional cutoff or not, since there is no clarity on sectional cutoff, since there is no clarity on this, I will ensure that I will do a bit of everything. So while there are 4 passages, I may be tempted to do 2 passages, but if I don't have time, I'll still do 1 passage. So minimum 1 passage is necessary because I don't know whether there is a sectional cutoff or sub-sectional cutoff or not. Okay? So that's the first thing which I need to remember. Second, when I'm looking at English usage again, a grammar has 0.75 marks, vocabulary has 0.75 marks, para completion has 0.75 marks, sentence jumble has 7.75 marks. Now why should I do anything which takes a larger amount of time? Okay? So while I'm saying you need to first look at across section where should you maximize. Second, you also need to look at within a section which are the questions you are going to do. So if I'm looking at English usage, I would say maybe about 10 minutes would have been more than enough for this section, which means on an average I have to do about half a minute per question, assuming I leave 0 per question. Leave the ones which are lengthy, time consuming, look difficult to understand, use whatever parameter, but make sure you get to within this much time. Similarly, when I'm saying I have to do 2 passages should not take more than 15 minutes, preferably 12 to 13 minutes. And if you have less time, do only 1 passage and move on. Okay? So please remember, this is a paper where strategy is important. This is one of those few papers where strategy, I hope I get the spelling right, strategy is extremely important. You need to strategize, and which is why I said the first 10 minutes of the paper. In some cases, if you have some practice, this could be even reduced to 5 minutes. But I'll plan to say that the first 10 minutes I will read the instructions carefully. First 10 minutes I will understand the nature of the paper, I will understand each section, and the balance 110 minutes I will decide, I will do the paper. So first 10 minutes is for understanding and for planning. If you don't plan, you are unlikely to get a call from this paper. This is an extremely important part of the paper. Please don't miss out on this. Yeah, over to you, Abhishek.
Okay, thanks, Yuki. Yeah, so you can select your, you can decide your strategy accordingly. I find worth mentioning that I scored well in this paper without doing RC, no question in RC at all. Fine. So you can very well do that. In fact, my reason for not doing RC was I wanted to see if I actually get a call without doing RC. I managed to get. So you can decide accordingly, because I can see a lot of questions, a lot of people asking about whether I should do only quant BI and can I clear the cutoffs. Yes, I have seen people doing that. So there was this one guy who used to score only in quant BI and and he always, I'll not say always, because IIFT at times has sectional cutoffs, but he cracked IIFT so many times doing only quant BI and So you can very well manage to do that. But I'll still say that there are some filters in every section that need to be capitalized upon. So if you're not good in GK, you will still find some 3 or 4 or 5 questions in GK section that could be worth attempting. So that way, I'll say that treat the question, treat the paper on its merit. With this, I would want to move on to the next section. This is general knowledge. This is definitely not my forte. The only good thing that I find in this section is that it contains a lot of those match the column kind of questions. No, this is something in this paper that would require a lot of smart work to be done. At times you'll find questions in this match the following, in which if you know just 2 of the answers, you would be able to crack the question. So just look out for those match the following questions in general knowledge. Trust me, there are a lot of match the following questions in GK section at least. And think Rajat has joined us, so I would want to invite Rajat to speak more about. Rajat, please start speaking. I cannot hear anything. Rajat,
since Rajat is, we are not able to get through to Rajat, and since I see Neeraj has joined us, suggest we give them back to Neeraj. Two reasons. One, overall paper understanding. I think he's one of the best. And second, GK again is something which is his forte.
Neeraj, please, if you can hear us, please take over.
I can hear you guys. Good evening, all the attendees. What he is talking about, general knowledge, frankly, is there are two kinds of general knowledge which is here. And people go for all the world trade, which our career launcher gives. That can be very, very good. But frankly, I feel this paper is very, very tough. This GK is very tough, simply because the fact is you have to do a lot of reading. And if you don't do reading, you will be in a tough notch. So the time of our paper, like the time to read a particular question is so much that, frankly, I say that just pick 8 to 9 questions and do them, and you will clear the cutoff. I definitely, whenever I gave this IIFT, in spite of having good general awareness, I picked on the match the following and the honors and awards, because the figures of this world trade, export, import, they are so close, unless until you make notes like IAS, is very, very difficult. Understand, my dear friend? So if you see, just go for match the following. You will take around 1 to 1.5 minutes for each question, which is more than the average. But because sometimes there has been a cutoff, 1.5 marks. And regarding preparation for GK, go to the WTO, go to the award section, go to the people who are making a difference, and not the direct people. Right now, the US elections are taking place. So who are Secretary of State will be more important than President. The tournaments which have been taking place, not the winner, but the runner-up will be more important. And in GK, just the people who have made news, Anna Hazare team, all that. So the micro news concept is very, very helpful in getting 2-3 questions, awards, and whichever question has like the business, other thing has, business and other thing has, lot of text. I never used to read it because frankly, little bit of difference and other thing, I used to feel that I'm not going to get it. So therefore, my fundamental was simple, that leave the question and move on. If you are going to spend more than 12 minutes, so that your time limit should be 12 minutes. 12 minutes, do GK and move on. If you take more than 12 minutes, I think you are pushing your luck. Only in last minute, when you are tired of GK, tired of maths and DI, then only you should come back to GK, do one or two questions. And otherwise, pushing your luck in GK is of no purpose. So, Gaurika Talwar has what static GK? 1 or 2 questions can come from the static GK, but the questions are long. Okay. So the basic thing which we are talking about, what GP talked about, you got to know your section. I always talk about this paper is about smart people who can subconsciously assess, this is where I'm going to get marks. This is, I cannot get marks. What Abhishek was talking about, I also used to do only one RC. Why? Have you seen the RC answers? Somehow it has not been mentioned. In CAT, the answer choices, all the 5 choices are 1 line or 1.5 line each. In IIFT, all the answer choices are between 2 lines, 2.5 lines to 3 lines. So if you have to segregate answer, how are you going to do that? And that is what the problem is. So one RC and one RC you do it, probably your cutoff will be cleared. So these two things we have done. Then third thing about usage, what analysis what I have good vocab, but the vocab of IIFT is the toughest. No other exam gives this kind of vocab. So unless until you are an avid reader, you cannot score too high in vocab. And then you will have to go for grammar, you will have to go for inferential, parajumble, which take more time. And there you will have to see, like the para completion, I never used to do it. I used to just go for vocab. I used to go for spellings and word jumble if it's right. And I used to move on. So if you have got good vocab, you are going to save a lot of time. And that's why you will see the IIFT crowd, they are generally more elite in terms of English rather than IIM people. Because you really save time from this section so that you can devote more time. As Abhishek had rightly said, the heart of the paper is maths and DI. How are you going to get 40 plus marks? If you see in English, vocab, even good vocab, I can get only 6 correct out of 10. Spelling, so around 8 to 9 correct. So I get 4-5 marks in this. RC 5 marks. And then usage 6 to 7 marks. GK 2 marks. That makes it 6-5 to 13 marks. So I have to score 27 marks from maths, DI and reasoning. So this is how my analysis of the paper is. 4 to 5 marks from RC, 6 to 7 marks from usage, 2 marks from GK, and rest all marks from maths and reasoning and DI. And if you devote less time here, probably you will have around 1 hour 10 minutes, 1 hour 20 minutes for the other two or three sections. And that is the crux how this paper should be managed. If you manage like this, fine enough. And if you get stuck in RC, 2 RCs means good enough 20 to 25 minutes and your productivity will not be very good. I think what GP asked me, Abhishek, I've talked about the general paper up to what has happened. When it comes to maths and other thing, after you have done, I will speak further on it.
Okay, thanks, Neeraj. So we'll move to the next section. Before that, I want to check once more if Rajat can share his. At least I cannot hear anything. I don't think others can. I guess there is some problem with Rajat's microphone, so let's leave this. Rajat, you may just answer the questions on chat, whatever you think are relevant to your expertise. So we would move to the next section of the paper, which is quantitative ability. Now,
Sir, we can't hear you. I think there's some, if you could just check your mic again, because there's some problem.
okay, am I audible now?
Yeah, Abhishek, you're audible, but I couldn't hear Neeraj. There is a problem with the Neeraj's mic, I believe, or what is it? If you could just check up.
Okay, I'll start with quantitative ability. Then I'll check Neeraj's mic once we pass the mic to Neeraj. As saying that in quantitative ability section, it's very, very important to read all the questions. So if you read all the questions in quantitative ability, you are bound to get some setters in the paper. So it's a mixed bag. You'll find some really easy questions, some questions of medium difficulty level, and some really tough questions. So even if somebody is, hell-bent on doing everything in the quantitative ability in the paper, it will be very, very difficult to do that, because out of those 20 to 25 questions, there will definitely be some 3-4 questions which will be very tough, super tough kind of questions. And so just make sure that your question selection in quantitative ability is spot on. The difficult questions, the easy questions can be from from any topic. So there's no pattern as such that the questions for arithmetic are generally easier than that of algebra and things like that. So it can be absolutely anywhere in the paper. So those elusive sitters may be hiding anywhere in the sections. Would pass the mic to GP now. GP, please share your inputs on quantitative ability.
Yeah, I'll just do that. I think essentially when I look at last year's paper, Abhishek, I hope I have the writing right also, so it will be visible to everyone. When we look at the last year's paper, you'll find these are the two areas which dominated the paper.
I'll give the writing right.
Sure. Okay. Arithmetic and algebra. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so arithmetic and algebra are the areas which dominated the paper last year, though if we go back to the paper in the past, you'll find some bit of higher math also there. It was missing last year. So in addition to the fact that the number of calls came down, I think greater number of these questions, arithmetic and algebra, also ensured, and absence of higher math ensured that the cutoff went up a little. Okay? As Neeraj was saying, see, this entire paper is only about selection of right questions. What Abhishek has said, what Neeraj has said, it is about selection of questions, nothing else. Okay? And you'll find the way Neeraj said that in RC the choices are 3 lines, 4 lines at times, which you'll find here. In here also there are questions which are 6-line questions. There are questions which are maybe 8 to 10 lines also. Okay? So when you have such a lengthy question, the question will be very easy. I can assure you, once you read the question, you'll most probably get it right. But the problem is, in reading these 8 to 10 lines or 6 or 7 lines, you'll waste so much time that it is probably not worth reading that question. And which is why I would always recommend that this paper has to be done in 2 rounds. In 2 rounds, in round 1, look at only the short questions. I'm not saying easy, I'm saying short and easy. Okay? Why? Because there will be many questions. If you read them, then reading the question itself will take you a minute to a minute and a half. And then that is going to be not worth the effort at all. And in the second round, you look at the remaining questions and select the topic. Select the topic. Important thing is that there are easy questions spread all over. There are easy questions spread all over, and your task is to essentially identify and get those questions and do them. Don't go by length only or the easy only. As I said earlier, long questions, reading them will take so much time that you will not have time to spend. A little while ago, Neeraj also mentioned that between BI, reasoning, and QA, this is the place where you need to spend an hour and up to hour and 1 hour 20 minutes, and I completely agree with it. Because here, you will need to spend something like 30 minutes, and so would you need to do sometimes in reasoning. Reasoning could go up or down a little, but quant and reasoning are the 2 areas where you definitely need to spend maybe 25 to 30 minutes. So plan to spend so much. Round 1, focus only on the short question, read the question, you can solve it, great, do it. If you can't solve it, just leave it. Don't worry about attempting all questions. This is a paper where you have to go with a mindset of leaving questions. In this paper, more than any other paper, leaving questions is extremely important. And which is what you need to look at. Okay? Topic of questions, type of questions. If I go by CAT 2000, if I go by IIFT 2011, it is almost like a CAT paper. If we go back, it is higher maths is included and you have some amount of trigonometry and more of permutation combinations and difficult ones also, then it becomes a more difficult paper. So my feeling is this is the kind of paper which will continue. And even if we go back to the 2009 or 2010 papers, you will find even those papers had about 7, 8 or 10 questions which were from these topics and which were easily manageable. And that is what you are supposed to do. And from the remaining, you choose the questions which you are comfortable with. Okay. So that's essentially what I would like to say. Over to you, Abhishek. I will give this. We can just try out if Neeraj can speak again. Neeraj, if you could try it again.
Yeah. Can you hear me, GP?
Great, Neeraj. I can hear you. I am giving the writing rights also. So I'm making you the presenter.
Okay.
Yeah, Neeraj, over to you.
Yeah. I think we have been reiterating the fact that you need to spend time on maths. Now, what is your strong area? First of all, IIFT requires calculations or mathematical clarity. Frankly, I pick arithmetic questions because I know I can do them. Geometry, I pick them. My first round is this. Arithmetic, if it's more than 5 lines, I don't. PNC, I've always found that it is tricky, so I don't go for that in beginning. Unless until I read it. So I basically, if you see, anyway we can do 50% of the paper. So arithmetic and geometry, they comprise of more than 50% of the paper. Firstly, do that. At least you are surety that if you are going to spend time, you are going to get it, but your calculation speed should be good. Otherwise, you should be a high-flown engineer, and maybe in younger days we could remember the identities, but today we don't. So algebra I've always found tough of IIFT. I have purposely been leaving algebra because I used to find that I'll have to crack everything. I don't remember functions. There are lot many trigonometry. If somebody remembers and you are a fresh engineer who remembers data, then 2 or 3 algebra questions can be very, very easy. Otherwise, algebra is of hardcore, probably JEE prelim level. Then permutation combination, 1 or 2 questions are easy and rest all are like last year only 2 questions came, but otherwise it had a good lot of around 4 to 5 questions. 1 or 2 used to be easy and 2 to 3 used to be pretty tough nut to crack. What GP says about arithmetic and the long question, I have a habit and which you will see and check for yourself by going to library past IIFT paper. If you see a text and 6-7 line text and if the figures are not interspread in it, that means you don't find figures. That means it is a story kind of question attempted. 50% of the big questions are very, very simple. But I have never found any problem in any big question except 1 or 2, which I leave after reading for half a minute. And half a minute we are able to understand. But 80% of arithmetic questions I'm able to crack. Geometry, if the theorem strikes you, you can do it quickly. If the theorem does not strike you, don't go for the same question. Whichever has got diagram, those are easy. And rest I've talked about algebra. Algebra, I'll be a little difficult. So supposingly, what we talk of, we have got around 28 questions, around 25 questions. I can coolly attempt 12 and be happy. So this is how I do it. No, but I'll keep, because I have read the questions, if in the end, DI I find very, very difficult, I'll come back to math and attempt those PNC paper or attempt those algebra where we can solve it. Somebody has asked, can question have to be solved by SQC technique? Algebra, no. Arithmetic, you will have to read. But yes, little bit you can apply SQC technique. Algebra, definitely not. And geometry also, little bit of SQC techniques can be utilized. And good number of attempts, I've already said that. 50%, 12 to 13 is supposed to be decent attempt in math. Okay.
Neeraj, I would just like to add a couple of things.
Yeah, sure.
More as a clarification. The lengthy question of arithmetic are round 2 questions. For me, they are not round 1 question. Second thing, absolutely right about the SUC. Out of the 25 odd questions, not more than 4. If you're extremely fortunate, maybe 5. But I would say assume 3 to 4 questions are where you will be able to apply SUC, not so many. And but when I look at what you will attempt, on the higher side, people are going to attempt about 15 questions in this section. And I would say 15 is an extremely good attempt for this paper. So out of 15 questions, maybe 3 questions you can attempt by SUC. The balance 12, you will have to calculate to get the answer most of the time. Yeah, over to you, Neeraj.
Yeah, perfectly. 15 is a very good attempt. For a normal person, 12, I just wrote here, 12 questions will be very good attempt. Like this year's CAT, we advise everybody to be patient and, push. You have got to psych yourself that I'm going to calculate. And all the people who went with this mindset could do well in CAT. Just by planning, just by analyzing, this paper could never be done. We had to really apply pen to paper. You should be able to make equation. You should be able to equate your writing pens and everything. And somebody said about watch. Yes, watch has been allowed in this paper. You can really calculate. I used to take Pilot High-Tech Point pen to calculate so that in a little space I can write. And I feel that this paper checks your basic capability, whether you know it and you can execute till the end. I think for math, I think this much is more than sufficient, and they will have to revise their fundamentals. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thanks, Neeraj sir, for your input. In fact, I always thought if you talk about any management exams that if you talk about quantitative aptitude section, arithmetic questions are always the easiest. I, in fact, at times carry a slight arrogance in arithmetic. ऐसा क्या ले सकते हैं जो solve नहीं होगा? So thanks for vindicating my stand that way. But I generally prefer not to share it with people because at times people say no, algebra भी उतना ही आसान हो सकता है. So probably I don't know. Despite being an engineer, I never found algebra easier than arithmetic, especially the kind of algebra that at times they throw in the management exams. So if you talk about last year's paper, so the bulk of the scoring that I did in quant section was in arithmetic, but I thought that that's the case with me. So probably if it works for some others, wonderful. Okay, with this I would want to move to the next section, which is data interpretation. So just a second, I'll just transfer the presenter rights to myself.
Abhishek can. Okay, you could continue. That's fine.
Okay, so I guess now everybody can see the slide data interpretation written on it, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. So data interpretation in IIFT generally carries around 15 to 20 questions. Last year there were, this is 11 plus 5, 16 questions. So there are either 3 sets or 4 sets with some 3, 4, 5 questions in each set. Now, I said this about quantitative ability as well. This is true for DI as well. You cannot do everything in data interpretation in IIFT. Right? So, in fact, at times you'll find some 2-3 questions in data interpretation in IIFT which you would take some good 2-3-4 minutes doing with a calculator. They contain calculations which are as stupid as such. Right? So again, probably I'll go to the extent of saying that taking the right questions, the right sets, in fact, would be very, very important in data interpretation. And so if there are 4 sets, probably you'll find 2 sets in the paper which will definitely be doable. So it's not the case that everything in data interpretation is very difficult. So if it's 4 sets, generally you'll find 2 sets which would be manageable. Even if they contain calculations, there will be some scope for some kind of approximation in those questions sometimes, which you can definitely apply and arrive on the correct answer. But there'll definitely be 1 or 2 sets. As I said, there are generally no sectional cutoffs in this paper, so there might be somebody who may think that probably I'll do bulk of the scoring in data interpretation. It may get horribly wrong here, because even if you do the first 3 sets, that 4th set might be such that it will not be solved by you even in 20 minutes. Right? So choose your sets carefully. Read the questions first, read the data first, and then come on to starting your calculations. There will be a few questions in which you would not want to, or you would not be required to do any calculations. If you talk about how I attempt data inflation, I generally don't like putting pen to paper when doing data inflation. So I would generally want to do only those questions in data inflation which require absolutely no calculations. In fact, I'll say I'm not good at calculations. But I don't know. I've always been able to find such questions in even a paper like IIFT. So they are there. They are there. We just have to, be a bit wise in your question selection. Look through the questions. There will be something hidden in those questions that will make them easier. But with my kind of approach, you cannot do all 20. So if there are 16 questions, I'll probably be able to manage 8, 9 or 10, but definitely not 16. So question selection becomes crucial in this paper. Would pass the mic to GP again. GP, share your views on DI section.
Thank you. And Neeraj, you can jump in whenever you want to. Abhishek, if you could transfer these lighting lights to me.
Yes, I'll do.
Yeah, thank you. I will say data interpretation and RC. Data interpretation and RC are the two sections in IIFT which I found the most difficult. RC I've already talked about. I do one passage on, if I have huge time available to me, nothing to do, I'll look at the second also. But that's the limit. Similarly, in data interpretation, when I was doing the last year paper, in something like 15 minutes, I did something like 6 questions. I thought I had done a great job in this paper. 6 questions in 15 minutes, at least my feeling was, बहुत अच्छा कर लिया है, इससे अच्छा मुझसे नहीं हो सकता था. And please remember, this is calculation. As Abhishek said, calculator थक जाएगा ये सवाल करने में. Please remember, this is the problem with this. And it is not necessary that you have to do all questions. In any case, if you do something 4 to 5 questions in DI, I think you have done a great job, because this is time consuming. Calculation is very, very high calculation. I like Abhishek, hate putting pen on paper, but when it comes to IIFT, I'll say I don't have an option but to do it. Second thing is, in every DI set, whichever you choose, they are likely to be, even if it's an easy set with less calculation, out of 4 questions, you definitely end up leaving 1, if not more. There might be even a set in which you will leave 2 questions. Okay? So when I'm looking at this paper, please remember, this is calculation oriented. Be willing to put pen on paper. Be willing to put pen on paper. You don't have an option but to write down the calculation and do it. And the other similarity between data interpretation and RC is, RC, the choices are lengthy. It has got extremely long choices. 3 lines, 4 lines, at least 2 lines. Similarly, data interpretation, many a time, questions will have 4 statements, and each statement is effectively a question. And you have to identify which of these statements is correct. That is almost like saying you have to solve 4 questions to get 1 mark, not worth attempting. This is the problem with this section. And Neeraj, I'm passing on the mic to you for you to add something if you want to.
Yeah. If you see the IIFT paper, I pick up graph, in which there's not much text. I don't mind calculation. And there are 2 things which I'd like to add in this. So firstly, pick up that table along with which there are not many conditions, maximum 1 or 2 conditions. The chart may be very big, the question may be very calculative, but they're not condition given by if, as if GP is saying. So I pick up that chart first. I always believe in 2 charts. Supposing there are 16 questions, I will do 2 sets. I will never do all the questions of a set. I may pick 2, 3 out of 5. I have attempted 3 sets also, and my questions have been only 8. Because some questions require so much thinking. 2 calculations, so the 2 sets of thinking is allowed. As soon as thinking is more than 3 and 4, so the 3-step thinking, the questions become very, very tough. So just pick up the right kind of thing. Generally, always pick up the table, because that is purely calculative, and I start putting pen to paper, and then the average time per question comes to 1.5 minutes. It can be attempted. Yes, if you go for the which has text, we get confused. I keep reading it, what is there. I have bungled one IIFT paper in DI, which I used to think was my strength. After that, I've never bungled it, because I know how to get away from DI from this. As GP rightly pointed out, This is one of the toughest DI, very irritating DI. And if you have arrogance of DI, probably you should leave your arrogance at home and just calculate, and you can manage to get the cutoff. Reasoning is a much better bet in this paper. Okay, over to Abhishek or GP.
Okay, thanks, Neeraj. Ray rightly said it over.
Abhishek, I'd just like to add one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
And which is what Neeraj had mentioned, so just as a proof, I have just pulled out the last year IIFT paper, and I have done in 2 sets, which had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another had another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of 11 questions, 2 sets, I have attempted 7 questions. Just to highlight what Neeraj said, every set there will be 2 or 3 questions you will be forced to leave, choices will be lengthy, calculation will be difficult, don't worry, leave. Just pick out in every set 2 or 3 questions are easy, do them and move on. Okay. Yeah, back to you, Abhishek.
Very rightly said, GP. Thanks, Neeraj, for input. So I would again repeat what Neeraj just said. Leave your arrogance behind in data entration. There are bound to be some 3, 4, 5 questions in this section which you'll be struggling to get right even with the help of a calculator. I would like to add just one more thing in data entration. I don't remember a DI section in IIFT which does not have a few questions in which there is some ambiguity. Fine. So you know those question types, what is the percentage change in this over this and that and things like that. So there are always some 2-3 questions in DI integration which we find difficult to zero in on the correct answer even while making the answer key. The reason would be that the question can be interpreted in 2-3 different ways. So if you find any such question in the DI section of IIFT paper, just make sure that you leave it. So it becomes more like an RC question. If you interpret it this way, you'll probably get answer option A, otherwise C. So DI or quant ideally should not be like this, but in IIFT there's a good chance that you'll find 2-3 DI questions like that. So I'll not count them amongst those 5 or 6 erroneous questions. We'll talk about it later where those questions come from. But in DI, if you find any ambiguous questions, just leave it and go ahead, or mark whatever answer you think is correct in the first go. Don't waste too much time on it. Okay, with this I would move to the next section, the last section in fact of the paper, which is logical reasoning. So as you can see, logical reasoning is a mixed bag. So at times this section is a part of DI section, so then club the two, make it a 4-section paper, GU plus RC, logical reasoning plus DI. GK would be one of them. Fine. So if it appears as a separate section as it did last year, this is generally the breakup of the paper. And so it had questions on blood relations, team selection, arrangement, coding, everything was there. It was actually a mixed bag. There was one set of LR. There were 2 syllogisms, 2 questions on course of action. So it really had a lot of questions. Now, as I was just talking about some erroneous questions in IIFT, you find a bulk of incorrect questions in IIFT from this section. You'll at times find an arrangement set which would be very lucrative. Arrangement sets, those assignment problems are very lucrative because probably you'll think that once you get this correct, it's a set of 4 questions. If I can make that table, I'll get 4 out of 4, which is very true. But at times you'll find errors in questions like this in logical reasoning in IIFT. So again, make sure that you don't waste too much time on questions like this. If you think you cannot make a table out of these LR questions, there's some dichotomy, there's some inconsistency data, just leave it and move ahead. Other than that, if you talk about LR, last year there was just this one set on LR. Otherwise, if it's mixed with DI, generally there are 2-3 assignment sets, and it will generally find 1 or 2 easier sets in that. So just make sure that don't miss out on those easier sets on logical reasoning. Would again invite Neeraj to speak more about logical reasoning. Neeraj, please share your inputs on logical reasoning, making the presenter as well.
Yeah. Okay. So my dear friends, for me this is the section. This is the section. I do less in math. I do DI later. I max this from start. Blood relation, all 2 I do. Reasoning, caseless, yes, I stop for little, but coding, decoding, I can do it. My pen is going wonky. Okay. Then I go for syllogism, sure. If you see, 2 questions on syllogism, 2 on course of action, how much time? Syllogism is 1 minute each, course of action is 45 seconds, 3.5 minutes. Then the coding, decoding, half a minute to 1 minute, 5 minutes all done, 8.5 minutes. Then blood relation, 1.5 minutes, 10 minutes. And what is your number of attempts? And the marks is as much as RC and as much as math. The maths, that much time you take to read. However, I always found their logical reasoning, as Abhishek rightly pointed, a little wonky. So many times I've got stuck. So I just mark and move, just double checking. So, firstly, don't pick up LR in this. You pick up syllogism. You pick up course of action. You pick up blood relation. You go for this single or double question type of question, you'll see that 50% of the paper is done. Then you go to LR, and as you keep doing LR, I at least take 30 minutes in this. If you are slow, take 30 minutes in this, 30 minutes in DI, in maths, and only 15 to 15 minutes in DI. And you can score 25 plus marks from these 3 sections. The maximum marks come from logical reasoning, where I've scored even 17 marks. I've secured, so good. I'll always secure above 15 plus marks. And this is from where, then maths and DI put together, you can again score 15 marks, and 30 marks are nowhere there. And if you score 30 marks, you will get the call. So there's not much to talk of in logical reasoning, because I'll again repeat, don't go for LR in the beginning. Firstly, pick up blood relation, team selection, sometime number series, sometime coding, decoding, syllogism, course of action. Do all these questions in the first go. LR, sometimes they commit error, so therefore their LR is not okay. But still, out of 3, 1 you will get it. 1 will be little problem, probably you will get because of bonus marks. So 2 out of 3 LR sets, you can definitely do it. And that's all. This is the best set. Devote as much time. So over to Abhishek for logical reasoning.
Okay. Thanks, Neeraj. As Neeraj was discussing the LR section, I just quickly opened my scorecard for last year just to, kind of recall how the section was. I got 15 out of 21. I did 15 and got all 15 correct. So that kind of indicates what Neeraj was just saying. The questions that you can attempt, there's a good chance that you get all of them right. So there's a good accuracy that you can get in LR, provided you are reasonably confident of doing well in this section. The good thing about LR is that if you can do it, there's a good chance of getting the question right. Unlike probably a question type which is slightly ambiguous that way. So LR is something which is scoring in this paper, very scoring in this paper. In fact, for the record, I did not do even a single DI question last year in the IIFT, because obviously my aim was not to get a call. I just was trying to experiment with it. So I left all DI in this paper, got 16 out of what was it? Got 19 out of 24 in quantitative aptitude. And trust me, I never do a difficult question in the paper. I never do a difficult question in the paper. In fact, I think I cannot do a difficult question. So you can safely assume that there were 19 easy questions in the paper. That's why I must have got them right. So did 19 out of 24 in quantitative aptitude, got all of them right. 15 out of 21 logical reasoning, got all of them right. Did not do a DI at all. Did not do any RC question. Verbal was 17.25 marks, got 9.75. Must have got quite a few of them incorrect. Got around 2 marks in general awareness, and ended up getting a call without doing 2 sections. Right. So this can be one of the approaches to the paper. Treat the paper on its merit. Don't go there with a preconceived thing in mind, with this that I'll do this much in this and that much in this. Fine. So just have a look at the question paper first, and then decide for yourself what I'm going to do in this paper. I think the DI sets that appeared in the paper last year were actually tough. So I thought I'll be better off doing logical reasoning and quantitative aptitude in place of them. It was different a year before that. So later on when we come to the individual papers discussion, I'll probably share the scorecard. So it was very different last year from the year before that. So that's how we sum up all these sections. Now, when we are done with the the individual sections, I would want GP to share his inputs on how to attempt the paper, how to start the paper, what to do first, what to move on to, how to come back to it. So GP, Neeraj and I, all of us would share our approaches to how to attempt an IIFT paper, an IIFT kind of paper in which, don't be surprised if you get 8 sections in the paper this time. So that's how it's different. So we'll speak about our approaches to the paper one by one. I'll start with GP first.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhishek. Abhishek, the presenter, right, please. Sure. I'll be moving on to the whiteboard and I'll write down how I would attempt the paper, and then when Abhishek and Neeraj talk about it, I'll just put the comparison for you. Because you'll find there's no one way of doing any paper for that matter. You can do it in different ways. Typically, when I look at this paper, as I said, for me this is not a 120-minute paper. This is a 10 minutes plus 110 minutes. Now, this 10, most of the time I am able to do it in 5 to 7 minutes on the high side. So I get maybe 112 to 13 minutes. Okay? But for me, I always start by doing what takes the least time and what gives you the maximum return. So for me, this paper would always start, and when I look at IIFT paper, I will always start with GK. For me, the first section would be GK, and in GK, I will look at spending not more than 10 minutes. Why 10 minutes? Because there are about 20 odd questions typically, and you have matched the following. Match the following, some of them I get right, some of them I don't. But I typically look at one option, one match. On that basis, I will eliminate choices and then move on. After GK, I would go to English usage. Again, for the same reason, English usage and GK, the good thing is, because English usage has a lot of vocabulary, either you know them or you don't, so you don't waste time. And again, I will look at only about 10 minutes out there. So GK and English usage are my starting points always for paper. The commonality between the two of these is either you know the answer or you don't need the answer, you don't waste time at all. And both these sections typically I would look at finishing in 10 minutes each. I have a strict time limit. If in 10 minutes I find that there is still question left, I leave the section and move on. So for me, time is sacrosanct. I am not going to try and do more questions, because if I spend more time in this section, the subsequent sections are going to suffer. After EU and GK, I will normally go to RC, because once I've started the EU part, RC for me is a logical connect to it, where I will read and take it forward. And for me, this varies depending on the passage. If I find two short passages, I'll do 2 short passages, otherwise I'll do 1 passage. But when I was doing the last year's paper, I took something like 17 or 18 minutes. Let me just put 17 minutes. This can go up to 20 minutes also, but my recommendation would be plan to give only 15 minutes to RC. So let me put this way, 15 minutes to RC. And as we discussed, one passage, another passage, end of the story, and as Soumya had said, match the following comes here also. Match the following is something which is very, very important for IIFT somehow, and that is helpful for us. So between these three, I have spent something like 45 minutes. After that, after RC, I will typically go to reasoning. Reasoning is the section in which I want to maximize, because as Neeraj had pointed out, this section has large variety of questions, and I find that I can attempt these questions reasonably fast. So that both Neeraj and Abhishek have pointed out, questions have some kind of a wonky logic, there's some errors, and hence you can get stuck. So I will first do the individual questions and then move on to the group question, which has been the norm for me. Reasoning, I don't want to compromise. I will do 30 minutes out here. Okay. So which means I'm left with another let's say 15 minutes gone, 30. Okay, another 40 odd minutes. Okay. Then it is QA, and the last I will do is DI. DI, I know I'm not going to do much, because I know the calculation is going to be pathetic out here. And QA, I will do about 25 minutes. Okay. So which means another 40, 55 gone, 60, 140, and I will look at maybe about 15 minutes out here. Okay. So which adds up to about 115 minutes. But remember, I said for me that initial part takes about 5 to 7 minutes. So maybe a couple of minutes here or there, but that is a broad breakup I will look at. I will never look at IIFT as a 120-minute paper. For me, it is a 110, 115 minute paper depending upon how fast you are able to understand the paper. Last year's paper was a straight structure so it took lesser time to understand. The year before last was a little more complicated, so it would have taken a little more time to understand. But that is the way I would attempt the paper. Now, why would I do it this way? Because these are my strength areas. GK, I am reasonably good. When I say reasonably good, it means out of 20 questions, typically I'll be able to attempt about 10, on the high side 12 questions. Okay? So about 10 to 12 questions I will attempt out here. English usage, again, by and large, I am able to get more questions right. Here, again, I am not going to attempt the long questions. I am going to attempt only the short questions which don't take time. Things like para jumbles or para completion, I am unlikely to attempt. My focus here is vocabulary more than anything else. Reading comprehension, I just want to do one word passage and get it out of the way so that if they decide to have a sectional cutoff, I am not left in the hands. This, as I said, is the area where I maximize. These two areas are where I will maximize. Reasoning first, followed by quant. And between these two, my target would be, can I get at least 30 marks out here? Because if I get 30 marks out here, maybe at 10 questions, 0.5, maybe around 4 marks out here. Similarly, when I look at English usage may be another 7-8 marks out here, or maybe 10 marks out here, and another 5 marks in IP. I think I've done my job. Okay? So this is the way I would attempt the paper. Neeraj, you could take over from here as to how you would attempt the paper. I'll keep writing down. Abhishek, it seems Neeraj is unable to, so you could continue.
Yeah, I
how
think
you
I
would
can.
attempt the paper.
Okay.
JP,
Yeah,
I don't have much to add because I've been saying this is the way even I attempt the paper. Because same way, exactly the same way I've, 5, 6 times when I got the calls, I've got it done. Only once I did not get it when I got stuck in DI. Because I feel that, but the only place where I'm saying I'm little fluid between maths and DI. If maths is difficult, that time DI is easier, and I've been able to do 3 sets of DI. 2 IIFT papers, I remember I could do lesser number of maths, and I could do more of DI. So there I have to see, and we got to have faith that where I'm going to go, if a lot of algebra questions, I have a little phobia of algebra in IIFT. I don't have the phobia in Excel, but I somehow, straight comes out of the JE books, the questions of quant algebra. Then in English RC, I like to say, I go for the familiarity with which subject I am familiar with. Because the question you said, match the following. If you are aware about the subject, maybe you don't even read it, still you can match. So after doing, but again I do only one RC, so it takes me good 12 minutes, and GK again 10 minutes, and somehow we belong to the same era when CAT preparation required a lot of vocab. So somehow I'm able to get vocab of IIFT, but most of the students are not. I've never touched para jumble in user section. Para completion is still, because para jumble you see their sentences are big, and I'm very uncomfortable doing bigger sentences para jumble. Grammar I'm never comfortable, so I straightway leave. And arithmetic is something which in quant I pick up, so I'm at straightway. In DI, if I get stuck, I go back to quant and again do the quant. That's all. And if I get stuck in quant and I'm comfortable with DI, I keep doing DI. So my paper pattern is exactly the same order, same everything, is like GP. Thank you, GP.
Thank you, Neeraj. You have another session, so thank you for joining us. You might want to take a 15-20 minute break because your session starts at 9. Thank you, Neeraj. Over to you, Abhishek.
Okay. Honestly, I was expecting something else from Neeraj because now I'm not left with too much to speak about this. Okay. I'll take what GP said as the model, and will talk about how I'll go about it. I'll start with GK. Not because GK is the section at which I'm the best? Definitely not. In fact, of the 6, I think I'll be the worst at GK. But still, I think there's a scope of getting some 20% marks in this. So if the section carries a weight of, let's say, 10 marks, kuch bhi ho jayega, I think I'll definitely get 2. But I'll get these 2 marks in definitely not more than 3, 4, 5 minutes. So I don't spend more than 3, 4, 5 minutes in GK. I'll just quickly look for some sitter hiding here and there, some match of the following or something, and would, just add some marks to my kitty. So we'll start with GK, some 3, 4, 5 questions, 6 questions at the max, get 2, 3 marks, whatever I get, so that I have this satisfaction in mind that I did not, just skip this section altogether. After GK, I would move straight away to EU. The reason would be very simple. Of all the rest of the 5 sections, EU is the section in which I'll score the marks very, very quickly. So I generally do not devote more than 15 minutes to EU and am able to solve all the questions. Just for the record, I just opened my scorecards of the last 2 papers. Last year, I attempted everything in EU, except for probably 2, 3 questions, and ended up with a score of 9.75 out of 17.25, which is more than 50%. My target, I think I left 2, 3 questions. I don't remember exactly. My target in the section was crossing 50% marks in EU. In fact, if you look at it that way, my target in all these sections is crossing 50% marks, because I know that if I cross 50% marks in all these sections, I will definitely end up getting a call. Fine. So EU, I generally look at around getting 60% of the total marks in about 15 minutes, not more than that. So last year I got around 10 marks out of 17, which is more than 50%. The year before that, again I devoted some 15 minutes to it and got a score of around 7 out of 12.5 marks in this section. And I did not devote again more than 15 minutes. So this is something which is scoring for me in the sense that I can do it very, very quickly. After EU, I generally do not move to RC. Last year I skipped RC altogether. The year before that, I did, I think, just one passage. One passage because that year I wanted to do everything. Last year I wanted to check if they would give a call if I skip this RC section, subsection, last year was section, right, altogether. So I skipped this RC section altogether last year. Skipped DI as well though. Fine, and moved on to the quantitative section, at least last year I'm talking about, because I could straight away, what I generally do when I get this question booklet is that I just flip through it very quickly, just scan everything. Right? So you get a feeling, this DI set is very lengthy. There's this question which seems to be very easy, and at times while scanning the question paper in the first go, if I can crack a sitter or something, I have this habit of just marking that. Fine. So I don't end up with a feeling after the first 3-4 minutes that I've just wasted the first 3-4 minutes looking for the questions or the things to attempt. So if I can just see a sitter in GK and those first 3-4 minutes scanning the paper, I just quickly mark the answer. That's just in the mind. So not necessarily recommended for everybody. And so when I was doing it last year, I could realize that quant had some really easy questions to be capitalized upon. So I moved to QA next and did some 15 questions in QA. Very quickly. I did 19, but in the first go, I did some 15 questions because I wanted to have a look at reasoning and DI as well. After doing those 15 questions in QA, I was reasonably sure about scoring well out of those 15 questions. And then I moved to the reasoning section. Reasoning again was very manageable. Again, did some 15, 16 questions, got everything right, and then moved to DI. When I moved to the DI section, the last one, I realized that this is actually very tough and not worth attempting. Since I was not looking at a call, now this might be different for you. As you know that I skipped DI and RC altogether and got a 0 in both the sections, this is something which is not recommended for you. So out of, I think, I just checked how many DI questions were there last year. DI had 16 questions last year. 16 questions, 1 mark per question, so 16 marks. So I'm sure that if had I been looking for a call, I would definitely have attempted 1 or 2 sets here. If not 2, at least 1 set here, without compromising on my score, too much on my score. Because I wanted to leave DI and RC deliberately, so I probably did not do it. Otherwise, I'm sure there were 1 or 2 sets in this which could have been attempted. I moved back to QA instead and did 4 or 5 questions there. The ones I left, I told you I did 19 out of 24. I'm sure they were difficult. Otherwise, I would definitely have done them because in this paper of 6 questions, I just attempted 4 questions, managed to get a call because of the policy, fine, but not recommended for a student. So I would advise, even if you follow what I'm doing, GK is fine, EU is fine, Q and reasoning, you can probably cut down a bit on the time that you devote to Q and reasoning, and do just one or two sets in DI and RC, and this is how you should be able to crack this paper. So just probably 10 minutes to each to DI and RC. The way a student should attempt should be very similar to how I did the paper the year before last, right? So the 2010 paper, the year that was the paper that was conducted 2 years back was the paper that I attempted like a student. I'll just share my marks with you just to give you an idea of how I went about it. I got 11.5 in QA out of 30. LRD I got 17 out of 35, again 50%. Quantitative aptitude was around 40%. In passages I got 4 marks out of somewhere around 10, again 40%. In vocab, which is the EU section, I got some 7 marks out of 12, again around 60%. And GK I got 2 marks out of 12. I got a call. I scored way above the cutoff and got a call. And so now this time my breakup was much more the way it should be for a student. So I attempted everything. So passage, I'm generally not very confident attempting a passage because I think it consumes a lot of time. I'll be better off doing a one question. But I attempted something in it. So had they been sectional cutoffs, I would have been able to clear them. Similarly for GK and for DI and for SAR. And so just make sure that you don't miss out on any section of the paper. Just 2, 3, 4 questions everywhere, and you should be through in this. Yeah, over to you, GP.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek. I think that completes the session per se, and I hope we have been able to guide the students. Again, repeating, you can read it on my blog. You can go through the session again because by day after tomorrow, this will be available to you again for viewing on our website. Please be clear as to what you want to attempt. And there is ambiguity in this paper. Please make sure you keep 5 minutes minimum, maybe 7 or 8 minutes for scanning the paper. This scanning of the paper, which Abhishek talked about, which I have talked about, which Neeraj just talked about, is extremely important. It helps you understand the paper and helps you plan the sections better. If you do the scanning plus the planning part, the next 110 minutes of implementation becomes very, very easy. Most of the time we miss out because we don't scan and we don't plan, hence implementation always suffers. Okay? That is where I would like to leave you. We have another session which is there, so we'll close now. But one last question which I can see, are we allowed to take a calculator, wear a watch? Calculator not allowed. Wearing a watch, yes, definitely yes. And you can wear 2 watches if you want to. Okay? Abhishek, if there's nothing else, I think we should close the session because there's another session at 9 p.m.
Yeah, the session at 9 is it's specific to IRMA. So Neeraj would be discussing the verbal logic questions, types that have been coming in IRMA. Before closing, I'd just like to mention that we have a series of sessions scheduled for IIFT prep. A few of these sessions would be the discussion of previous year's papers. For example, most probably on 12th of this month, GP would be discussing the last year's paper. So he'll be discussing how he went about it, the questions, some of the questions in detail, not everything, not the tougher ones, but the easier ones, just to show you how to, reach that 45 marks, the magic figure at which you'll get a call. So, how we attempted the paper. Next in the series will be a paper discussed by me probably on 15 sections. You'll get the detailed schedule in a day or two, in which, I'll tell you how I attempted the paper in which I cleared the cutoffs and everything. So, we'll have a series of 3-4 such sessions in which we'll be discussing the previous papers, the actual previous papers, the questions, the strategy that could have been employed in them to clear the cutoffs. Apart from it, there'll be 2 GK sessions for IIFT. The way they were done for IRMA. So there will be 2 GK sessions. First of them would most probably be on 11th, that is Sunday, the day on which IRMA is going to be conducted. So you'll get all this, all the schedules and everything in a day or two on our Facebook page, on the exam corner and all other social media where it's generally there. So stay tuned and keep looking for all such sessions which are coming your way. I wish all the best to all of you who are taking IRMA and all the other exams that you take. Fine. Wish you all the best. This
One
recording.
last, Abhishek, one last thing. Please
Yeah,
download the IIFT papers from SIS, the career launcher students. Those of you who are not career launcher students, please borrow it from one of the career launcher students. Okay? So just make sure you download these papers so that, and maybe even go through them. Okay? Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you very much.
Just one last thing. The recordings of all these sessions are available at this URL. GP, if you can please write it down for the students. This is www.careerlauncher.com/classapart. /classapart. This is CLASSAPART. You'll get all the exam related online stuff there, apart from the videos as well. So just keep checking this website regularly. This is careerlauncher.com/classapart. CLASSAPART. So you can get all the recordings of all the previous sessions, all the sessions going to be conducted, and there on this URL. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll close the session for today. Thank you very much.